So we get off on Friday. We're finished a 2-hour extravaganza. Great job, by the way. And then all hell breaks loose. There's like Marner leaks left and right, and here we go. And so it comes out that Marner for Rantanen was on the table, and the Leafs actually went to Mitch Marner and asked him if he'd like to waive his no trade. Why don't we start with that piece of information, Rosie?
Yeah, wild news to leak makes you wonder like where'd this come from, and I like that stuff leaks. You want to know that kind of thing, but I don't. The only one I don't blame, and the only one I don't think has done anything. Not that I think anyone's done anything wrong, but Brad Treliving to me has done nothing wrong. I think you're not doing your job and you're not doing your due diligence if you don't ask this kind of thing. If you're a player that wants to have a no trade, you understand that you may be asked to waive that at some point. It's just part of the business. Everything we're talking about is part of the business. And I don't think that means Brad Treliving doesn't want him. I don't think that means he's not going to sign him. I don't think that means he doesn't value him. But you are not doing your due diligence if you don't exercise every option, especially when you're talking about something of the magnitude of having Rantanen on your team with a pending free agent. It all just adds up to the business and the nature of the beast. It's a wild thing, and I'm curious to see how Mitch responds as far as his attitude towards the Leafs and getting a deal done, and whether that hurt his ego or he has his backup. It's going to be interesting to see. Comes out very next game and rips two, so it doesn't look like it affected his performance. He still looks like he's on fire. So interesting turn of events. Though, what was your take on it?
Man, like wild stuff. I know a lot of you in the chat are asking right now who leaked it. All the insiders, that's all they were talking about, including Elliot Friedman on Saturday, broke it down pound for pound, what transpired in the 48 hours, leading to the Rantanen deal. But the fact like the Maple Leafs were in this thing, like not just in it, like they were at the finish line, it sounds, with making this deal where it's like all they needed to do was have Marner waive, and it was going to be Rantanen for Marner with a fresh extension for Mikko Rantanen. And the fact that there was a variety of different offers on the table, we heard about Friday too, and the one with Cowan, Minton, and 2 first-round picks. That's another play. But I wonder if the Maple Leafs have tipped their hand here, and I actually don't mind it. Like nothing has changed, I think, in the last week, aside from the fact of all this information came out. But I think it just made too much sense from the get-go to see how the playoffs go before deciding. I don't like to your point. I don't blame Brad Treliving. I don't blame the Leafs. You want to better your team any way you can. But to me, it tells me they're open to seismic change, what I love to hear, Rosie.
I like the idea too that they're not married to this guy, and sometimes it's like you get the idea that an organization just won't even exercise any other options other than looking down one hallway. And the fact that I think they want to have conversations with him right now and open to discussions on negotiations. I think they could let him walk. I think they were open to letting him trade. Obviously, I love the idea that your GM's open to all different options. And like I said to start the show, I don't blame him at all. I think you're doing your job and doing your due diligence by exploring every possible option. It does not mean that you're closing the door on anything. So we'll see if Mitch wants to continue with negotiations. The one thing I'll say though is if you're not willing to trade your to negate your no move clause in order to let the team move on, I hope you're not going to dig your heels in and put them in a horrendous position and say I want $14 million and then walk for nothing, because there's one easy way to make yourself a long remembered villain after all the good you've done and all the fans that you have in Toronto is to pull a move like that at the last minute. If he thinks that they are not going to get to a deal, and that if he understands based on negotiations that they've had that they're way too far apart, and then what they're offering, and it seems like Tree and his company is saying this is kind of where we're at in our max, and they come to a standstill on negotiations, it's a tough look to say, no, I'm not waiving my no move and I'm still going to walk for nothing. I mean, fans will remember the fact that you screwed them. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's how he will be remembered. So it's going to be interesting to see what transpires with his negotiations. Again, with the play of him lately, he looks phenomenal. You go and you look at his numbers, and you're used to looking at a whole bunch of guys' numbers here throughout the trade deadline. You look at Mitchie's, it's like, oh my God, this guy is just rattles points off like crazy. And I think people are right. It's going to be hard to replace him if he does walk, but there's a lot of factors going into play here, and we've been talking about it all year.
I saw video of Mitch Marner and Craig Berube talking at practice. I would have loved to know what he said to them in that scenario. And I think to your point, Marner's had a fantastic season. I just want to put you, the player, in those boots, in those skates. How do you think Mitch Marner feels right now, knowing the team was wanting to trade him, open to trading him?
Honestly, I think if you're being a professional about it, you have to understand that this is the business of it. If he didn't want to handle any of this, he could have gotten a deal done. Obviously, they haven't got a deal done because Mitch wants X and they're only willing to give him Y. No one doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but no one's going to bend at this point in time when they don't have to. But if you don't want to go down this road, if you don't want to deal with that scrutiny, if you don't want to be put in the position where maybe they look elsewhere, well, then you would come to terms before this. And I don't. Obviously, he's not willing to do that, and he doesn't have to do that. Everyone has to understand that they are part of a camp. You have your agent, you have your player, and then you have your organization and your general manager, and everyone's going to try to get as much as they possibly can for their side. It's just the nature of the beast. So if you're a professional and you're going down that road and you're at a stalemate with negotiations, I don't think you can get your back up or your ego hurt by finding out the fact that they may have been shopping you around. It's tough. The worst thing I think for athletes is when you go to arbitration. I mean, you sit in the room and they tear you apart limb by limb, and it is absolutely devastating to your ego and your confidence, but it's part of the business.
Love how everything was so quiet on the Marner front all season long, and in a 48, 72-hour span, all hell breaks loose. And even we got the leak on Friday that he's willing to walk right to free agency. And like that's what started everything, right? Because the leak came out about the initial offer with Carolina with the two prospects, then the monster one with Marner on the table on Saturday. Just a really, really eventful weekend from that perspective. But what'd you make of that commentary or that leak that Marner is open to going to free agency?
Well, I'm
Are they are
okay
they
with
are
it.
they negotiating through the media is my question.
No, but you want to throw your little pricks. Like you only get so much time to talk, and you come to the table, and then it's done. And you don't. And you just then you talk amongst your own team. Like, what do you think about that? And what do you think they're at? And what did you make of this? And then if the media asks, you can throw one little piece of shade in there, one little tidbit in there to kind of tip your hat a little bit to say, yeah, like here's where I'm at. It's a little bit of a game of cat and mouse, but again, just like it's Tree's job to go and exercise all his options with a trade and with Rantanen, and even going as far as asking if he's willing to waive his no trade clause. For Mitchie, it's within his rights to play out his contract and go to free agency. If he says, I'm worth more than what you're willing to pay me, and I know that, and I'm going to go to free agency and get it, um, I don't fault him for that. I'm just for the record, if you don't waive your no move when you're leaning towards potentially going to free agency and you leave for nothing, the team you just left in the dust is going to remember you for that. And it's funny because Mitch could have two avenues here. He could be a lifelong Leaf, basically, be a guy on Legends Row, have his jersey retired in the rafters, all that kind of thing. Or else you could be remembered as the guy that wiped his boots before he left and left the organization in the dust. And I don't fault him, or it's the nature of the beast, man. It's part of the business. It is what it is, and I'm interested to see what happens big time. I have a feeling, but what were your thoughts? Like, what if that deal did go through, and we have Ranton in here, and we sign him to probably 13 million bucks, and now we have another player like that? Is that still too many eggs in one basket? Is that still too many softer, high end forwards? Like, it's kind of the same problem as the core four, no?
It's just like shuffling the deck chairs and bringing in somebody who's a bit more physical, who's won before.
Yeah.
But like I just thought it would have been a shitstorm. Like let's say hypothetically this deal happens, you trade Mitch Marner. It's happening in Ottawa right now. I don't know if you caught Brady Kachuk on Friday, but he was like tearing up. His buddy, his best friend Josh Norris. Like you have to take emotion into account, humanize the situation. I think it would have been a way bigger shitstorm than today is, or the last couple days have been, if they somehow pulled off this deal and Marner was gone. Just like the uproar, I think to begin with in the room. So
Well, the
I
other
just
thing
think,
is,
yeah.
you're getting Rantanen. I mean, his playoff numbers are ridiculous. He has won a cup. I get that. He's phenomenal. Um, but you don't know for sure what he's going to do without Nathan McKinnon. all we know for sure is what he looked like in Carolina over the last few weeks, and it wasn't
Sucked.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the other fact is, okay, maybe you do upgrade a little bit, but 2 firsts and our 2 top prospects, now the barrel is empty. Like, you have nothing on the shelf. That's a huge kind of risk to take. So I think that deal could have gone bad. As exciting as it would have been, and how much I think Rantanen is phenomenal and has a chance to be better than Mitch. I mean, it leaves yourself open to some scrutiny and to some that was a blunder and that didn't work out. It's a big risk to happen, and I'm not terribly sad it didn't happen, to be honest with you.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.